Once Hans was able to sneak past the guarded main entrance of the walled kingdom's village, he and Pavlova hurried into the woods. Okay, all right, I can do this. I may never have been beyond the wall, but I'm a man. I can do this. It'll be easy. Find Eric, give him the crossbow and arrows, and go home for a nice cup of hot soup for supper. Yes, I can do this. I can do this. Hans trailed off nervously as sweat dripped down his forehead, while Pavlova walked through the woods with him. Eric! Eric! Hans called out, trying to find his cousin as soon as possible. Suddenly Pavlova began hissing behind the boy. Pavlova, what's the matter? Hans asked nervously, fearing he already knew the answer. Please don't be a dangerous wild animal. Please don't be a dangerous wild animal. Hans begged silently, and as he forced himself to carefully turn around, only to nearly faint from fright. There were wolves, at least half a dozen of them. They had gray fur, and they were large and growling, as well as approaching him and Pavlova. Hans stuttered as he took out an arrow, placing it in the crossbow. You wolves, get away from us! Stay away! He threatened fearfully. His hands, along with the crossbow, were shaking, but the wolves growled and continued to stalk closer to him and his cat. Run! He told Pavlova as they took off running away from the wolves. Hans was so busy running away that he failed to notice that he had dropped the crossbow, and when he turned around, he gasped in horror. The arrow had pierced through Pavlova's leg, and it was bleeding badly. Pavlova! Hans cried and began to run over to his cat, only to stop as the other wolves blocked his path, growling. Get out of my way, please! She's hurt! Hans begged as he looked past the wolves, only to gasp at the sight he was witnessing. A girl, about a year or two younger than him, with shoulder-length auburn hair that was pulled back and held up in a blue ribbon, crystal blue eyes, wearing a teal-colored dress smudged with dirt, was pale-skinned and barefooted, and was holding Pavlova, who was meowing in pain from the arrow in her leg. Hey, leave her alone! Hans cried, as he was so confused and frightened he couldn't move. The girl looked up at Hans, and to his surprise, she growled and barked at him, and looked at Pavlova with a sense of pity and softness in her eyes. Give her back, please, Hans begged softly, as he wasn't sure so softly that he wasn't sure if the girl could hear him. Suddenly a horn could be heard in the distance, making the girl and the wolves between her and Hans look towards the source of the sound. Let's go, the girl told the wolves as she hopped onto one of the wolves' back with Pavlova in her arms and ran out of sight deeper into the forest. No, Pavlova! Hans cried as he tried to chase after the girl and the wolf pack, only to stop when he saw Eric running towards him. Hans, what are you doing out here? His older cousin questioned as more guards showed up, along with the short king who was riding on his large white horse. Eric, what's the meaning of this? We're supposed to be hunting the wolves. Who is this lad? The king boomed. Your Highness, please accept our apologies. This is my younger cousin, Hans, Eric said as he kneeled before the king, making Hans do the same with his hand on his shoulder. What is a young boy doing out of the wall of the village? You know the rules. No children outside of the wall, the king shouted angrily. Well, you see, your majesty, my cousin left his crossbows and arrows at home. I wanted to return them is all, Hans stuttered nervously. Oh, Hans, I got a new crossbow and arrows. That's why I left my old ones at home, Eric clarified, Hans' eyes widened in shock. It's my fault. I shot Pavlova by accident, and some wolves and a crazy girl took her, he exclaimed. The king smirked. A girl? Not to worry, a girl can't do anything rash. This Pavlova should be fine. But Pavlova is still a kitten, and she's injured. That girl took her, and she was so strange. She was controlling wolves. What if they eat Pavlova? Hans cried in panic, making all the guards and the king laugh at him, while Eric covered his face in humiliation. Ha! You call yourself a man, boy? Making a fuss over a little kitten? The guards laughed. My thoughts exactly. You should go home and forget today ever happened. Maybe rest up a bit. Your mind's in a bit of a haze. The king laughed as Eric pulled Hans back towards the town. You completely embarrassed me. You know that? Eric gritted through his teeth as they were far enough away from the king and his soldiers. I'm sorry, Eric. I was trying to help. But Hans started, but his older cousin cut him off. You'd do best to stay in Uncle's workshop, tinkering with those clocks, and keeping your thoughts to yourself. Hans bit his lip to keep himself from shouting. So much had happened. First, Pavlova was injured and taken from him, and his own cousin didn't defend him, and the thought of him as a failure. I'm sorry, Hans whispered, but Eric stayed silent as he continued to pull Hans back towards the town. The next morning, Hans pretended to still be asleep when Aaron left for his hunting duties beyond the kingdom's walls in the forest. Once the boy was sure his cousin was gone, he sprang from the bed and quickly dressed, grabbed his black cloak and hood and Eric's old crossbow and arrows, and took a deep breath of reassurance for himself. I'll save you, Pavlova, I promise. You'll come home safe and sound.